The topic today is how to stand out from AI-generated content with thought leadership. Now, when you see my slides, you're going to see some Black women in there. I'm trying to do this new thing where I educate, teach people something, but also give you some awesome Black women to follow. And if you're looking for like speakers or anything like that, you can just quickly find them on LinkedIn and yeah, tap into that. All right, Bernard already did the intro about me. My name is Chima, Senior Content Marketing Manager at Moz, but I'm also the founder of the Freelance Coalition for Developing Countries. It's my passion project, and what we do is that we provide free training and resources for marketers of color who want to upskill and earn a great wage for their talent. And you can find us on freelancecoalition.org. We're not just for freelancers. I just want to put it out there. We're for all people of color who want to work in marketing. That is the audience that we serve. All right, into today. Here's what you're going to learn. It's broken into 4 parts. Why you should care about thought leadership in 2024 and beyond. 5 strategies to become a thought leader with content marketing. Why your AI content sucks. Thank you, Bernard, for that tip. How to use AI content to build thought leadership. And at the end of it, we'll take questions. Now, why should you care about thought leadership? This year, being 2024, the second year that we've had massive blowout of AI tools and everything, and even beyond that, because it's not going anywhere. Now, I just want to start by just defining what I think thought leadership is. It's the expression of your ideas, but with helpful insights that demonstrate your expertise on a specific topic. I think many people just see thought leadership as this thing that exists in a vacuum. Why should I care about it? And then you see people like maybe Gary V or maybe someone like Bernard, just think of someone who has like maybe 20 or 50 or 200K followers on LinkedIn. And that's what people think, oh yeah, that's a thought leader. But anybody can be a thought leader. That is what I've been trying to say. Anybody can be a thought leader. You just need to have strong opinions. You need to have unique way of thinking about problems, unique way of solving those problems, and then sharing it with the public to demonstrate your experience. Honestly, that is thought leadership in a nutshell. Now, what is the benefit of doing that in content marketing and even beyond for your business? Right off the bat, the first thing you're going to get is more visibility, more followers. I still remember 2020. Yep, I think 2020, when I started to think more strategically about my social media, about who I wanted to be when presenting myself out there, and I started to create more strategic content. And the first thing that happened that same year was that Matt Singers reached out to me. He runs the SEO Mastery Summit. They're doing a remote version for the first time. And he's like, people have been shouting my name, recommending me to him to be a speaker for his events. I didn't even know who he was. I didn't know about this event. But this is one thing that happens with thought leadership. You stay top of mind for people. And then when someone is asking them, hey, I want to find more diverse speakers, I want to find more female speakers, I want to find more speakers generally for my event, you are the first person that comes to mind for them because they are thinking about you always, even when they are not. Now, the other thing is that you stand up from boring AI content. I edit a ton of content at Moz, and I can tell you this, probably 80% of the stuff that's coming to my table is AI content. And I can tell because they're just specific words in the blah, blah. It's not just this, is that, just small things that you can just tell that this stuff was written in AI. Now, I don't have a problem with AI generated content. Let's get that clear. My problem is that it is boring. It is not engaging. It does not show you as an expert. It makes me want to just pass out from boredom. And that is the problem with most of the AI content that we're seeing. Now, the other thing that why you should become a thought leader is that you become the authoritative source of truth. As far as I'm concerned, this is the creme. This is the main reason why we do thought leadership, why you should even be investing in thought leadership. When I think of Google penalties, the first person that comes to mind for me is Mary Haynes. She's published so much content around this. If I think of headless SEO, the first person that comes to mind for me is Lydia Infante. If many people say that when they think about topic clusters, the first person that comes to mind for them is me. So you want to be known for one thing, that people are coming to you and they're asking you to contribute. Oh, what are your thoughts on this specific topic? Because they see you as the expert on that topic. Now, and I think this one, for those of us who do SEO, for those of us who work in marketing, improve your EAT. If I Google anything around my body, around my health, the first thing that's going to come up is WebMD, probably telling me that I'm about to die but they're going to rank for everything in between you're about to die. And that's because they have really good authority. WebMD was already adding authors' names edited by, even before people were even talking about EAT. And I think they benefit a lot from just good holistic SEO practices and by platforming people that I consider experts in each specific field of what they're writing about. And if you just remove all of that, remove all of those layers, those people are experts because they are problem solvers, because they've been publishing content, probably not just on WebMD, but on other places too. And that is one of the best reasons why you should be thinking about thought leadership. When you write your content and you put your name on that content, already Google is going to probably draw from all these other sources and see that, oh, this person is an expert on this problem. This person knows what they're talking about. Let's surface their content above all of these other people who are generalists and are probably just regurgitating what already exists out there. I hope you're paying attention. I talk like I have really hot yams in my mouth. So you really have to like focus to hear anything that I'm saying. And then I think finally, this one, attract new business with ease. I hate cold messaging. I hate cold anything. I hate going to meet people and saying, please give me money. Please give me money. I absolutely hate cold messaging. Now, what is easier for me? What is easier for me is attracting people easily. And I do that by putting out content on my blog, by doing stuff like this webinars, jumping on podcasts, literally just putting out good content out there. And then when people read my content, or people interact with any of my content, they're like, oh shit, Chima really knows what she's talking about. Let's get her to solve this problem that she's just talked about. I've done podcast appearances that have gotten like more than maybe 20, 50K in revenue just from jumping on podcasts, from doing things like this. But also it's that the value is there. And I've positioned myself as a thought leader on whatever I'm talking about. So it's easier for me to attract clients by being a thought leader than by, let's say, sending code messages to people that are already suffering from fatigue of receiving like 100 messages a day. Now, you know why you should be a thought leader. How do you do this? With content. All right. The first thing I want you to do is to set goals. That was a mistake I made when I started thinking about, oh, I want to be known for content marketing. I want to be known for content SEO. I was just putting out content. I'll just Google stuff and I'll just write the first thing that comes to mind. I didn't really have goals of what I wanted to achieve. The moment I reframed my mindset and I changed all of that in 2020, the first thing I did was that, okay, I'm going to set goals. I want these goals to be specific, measurable, attainable, and I want to be able to measure them and say, okay, this is what I did in January. This was the result from it. Now, for you or for me, the goal could be, oh, I want to grow my LinkedIn followers by 32% in 90 days. That means that you take note of how many LinkedIn followers do I have today? What do I need to do to get 32% in 90 days, and then track that result because it keeps you accountable. You could also have a goal of you want to generate 10 new organic leads, because adding LinkedIn followers, but without generating leads from those followers that you're adding, is not really giving. So the most important thing is that you want to be generating leads. And that means that the kind of content you are putting out, the kind of people you are connecting with has to be meaningful. Now, this is not just LinkedIn. We're talking about your blog. We're talking about any of the stuff that you're doing to build thought leadership. You always want to be tracking the efforts. All right, next step. Who, what, and how? Who are you going to target? Because you can't just put your message out to everybody. What are you going to say to these people that you're targeting? And how are you going to reach them? Now, the who, this is the core of it. Because if you don't know who your audience is, then you've already failed, because you're just going to be putting out message that goes to the wrong people and then nothing happens and you're just frustrated. So first things first, what is the core of your expertise? Who benefits from that expertise? And usually for people like us who are content marketers that work in SEO and all that stuff, it's like peers, it's hiring managers, it's consultants, it's people who are decision makers like C-suites and other aligned verticals. Now, those aligned verticals, is up to you to figure out what that is. Okay, where am I? All right, I'm here. If you don't know your target audience, the first thing that you can do is to find them by looking at your competitors. Now, there are two ways that you can find your competitors if you have absolutely no idea of who that is. The first way is that you can use a keyword research tool like Moz to look at competitor information. The second way is that you can look at ChatGPT. So we're going to look at the two of them. I should have opened this before jumping on this webinar. So forgive me, you're going to go through all these steps with me. So we go to Moz, we go to competitive research, and let's say, no, before going to competitive research, let's do some keyword research. Let's say I want to target people that are email marketing software, and I say email marketing software. What I want to do is to see who is ranking for that keyword or who are like top of that list. All right. G2 is here. That's always a good source of information because at least I can trust the data from G2. I'm going to scroll up here and I can see MailChimp, Mosen, MailerLite. What is MailerLite's URL? Let's see. MailerLite. MailerLite.com. Okay, cool. We have a URL. So I can now go to competitive research and I can say MailerLite.com and I can find competitors. And I can see other websites that do email marketing or that will be like competitors for MailerLite. Now, this is just like a broad overview. Once I know who these people are, the next thing I want to do, I want to know who in these companies should I be targeting, because I'm going to use like LinkedIn to start that process of finding the people that I want to target. And that is when I now go to ChatGPT and I say, I want to become a thought leader in content marketing. I'm not sure who to target. First of all, let's dial back. The whole idea of saying, assume you are this or assume you are that. I absolutely hate that. Bin it today. Bin it. ChatGPT is an AI. It's a machine. Stop telling it to assume is this or assume is that. It is not the expert. You are the expert. I think it's lazy to be asking ChatGPT to assume is this or assume is that. It's still going to give you the information that is drawing from, information that's on the internet. So rather, interact with ChatGPT like an assistant. Honestly, I talk to ChatGPT like a person. The same way I'll talk to a person, the same way I talk to ChatGPT. And the information is still very, very useful. Now, before we even come to this, where I've put all of this instruction, the first thing you need to be doing when you're using ChatGPT to do anything is to make sure that you have your custom instruction set up. This is my, listen, I try to anonymize the data and not tell it where I work. I don't want using my information for training data, but I can just give it some broad information and say, this is what I want to do with ChatGPT, and this is how I want it to generate the responses. You really have to think deeply about this part because this is going to determine the kind of output that you get when you use ChatGPT. If you get this part right, the information you're going to get, honestly, is going to be so good. All right, now let's go back to the prompt. Where do I bring this down? Yes, cancel. And now I say, this is it. PS, hiring manager, CSOs. What I'm trying to find is that I'm just trying to bring out as many job titles as I can on ChatGPT that I'm going to be using when I create content online. I want to have someone at the back of my mind when I write a blog post. I want to have this person at the back of my mind when I do a speaking engagement, because this is the person that is going to become a customer. So ChatGPT gives me this information. Peers, hiring managers, C-suites, founders, consultants, head of departments. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I said you didn't add SEOs. Because I'm the expert, I have an idea of who I should be targeting. ChatGPT is always going to leave something out because it's not the expert. And this is the thing I say repeatedly that separates ChatGPT from human beings. It doesn't have context. So you are the one that needs to be providing that context for it. Now, I can pull out from this and say, okay, as a content marketer, let's say I don't know who my audience is. It just makes sense for me to target someone who's a manager. I want to also, if I'm looking for an in-house role, then this ones here under hiring managers would make sense. If I was looking for a C-suite executive, a CMO, maybe a chief digital officer would also make sense. Founders, I would also only say to target founders if they're like maybe Series A and they're like bootstrap because they're still very small. But once they start to get big, you're not going to get the attention of a founder. You're better suited trying to get like a CMO or somebody else. Heads of department are my favorite because those are the people that tend to hire me. But I've also found really good fit with like people who do product SEO. Honestly, I think people ignore them, but they're also good people to work with. But yeah, this is just the start. This is me now getting a list of who I should be targeting. Okay, now I know my target audience. Let's go back to this. We now have an idea of the industries we want to target, who those competitors are, what we're going to be plugging when we go to like LinkedIn or when we go to Twitter. We're going to have like an idea of job roles and all of that. That is our who. Now, the next part is what are you going to say to these people? So, the first thing you have to consider here again is that what type of content are they interested in? Where are they in their knowledge journey? This is so important. What content formats do they prefer? What will you say on the different platforms you've chosen to engage there? Now, you have to be very careful here. I think it's too easy to spread yourself too thin, trying to do all the platforms, and then you're not present anywhere. I would rather you pick a few platforms. For me, top of that list would be your blog. You always want to be putting out content on your blog. Then I can then repurpose what I put on my blog for LinkedIn, for Twitter, and I can also repurpose it for like podcasts, for webinars, and speaking appearances. As far as I'm concerned, this is more than enough of a toolkit to build a thought leadership strategy. All right, moving on. Where am I? I keep losing my track. Yes, what type of content? Now, we have an idea of what you're supposed to be doing when you're creating the content, but I think one of the biggest issues people have is what should we say? I see this all the time on LinkedIn. I see this all the time when people create blog content. So I just want to give you like another overview, and we're going to go back to ChatGPT again and look at that. I'm just assuming that you are here and you're still trying to like figure stuff out. Now, when I tell ChatGPT to give me idea for beginner level content, a lot of this stuff that is giving me, it feels very generic. It's not going to engage anybody. That's another thing I want you to do. Think about what you are getting from ChatGPT from the mindset of the person who you have in your head as the end user. Are they going to enjoy this stuff? Content writing tips. If there are too many people already creating all this stuff. So your mindset should always be, how can I personalize this stuff? How do I personalize it so that it comes from my experience? And then that is what people are going to remember. Oh, this person said they had this specific problem, and then they had this unique way of dealing with that problem. And then I say, all of this is boring. I want stuff that feels like storytelling, just from personal experiences, because that is the stuff that is going to make people to remember you. And now it starts to give me some really nice stuff that I can use if I was creating content. And again, I know that some of this stuff might not even have keyword value, but honestly, if I had the time, I would still write this stuff, maybe as a blog post, do it as a podcast, do it as a webinar or something, and people would engage with it because they are learning from your personal experience. So look at some of the examples of what it gave me. My first content campaign, lessons learned, the blog post that changed my perspective, mistakes I made as a rookie. This is all beginner level stuff. If you're just starting out and you're like, oh, I don't have 5 years of experience, this is the kind of stuff that you want to be writing about on social media. Now, I say this is good and I want more, and then it gives me some more, gives me some more. Already, I promise you that I can break all of this stuff into like 30 days of content on LinkedIn. And then I can pick some of this stuff and then turn it into pitches for speaking engagements. And I can just use this to like brainstorm something that I can use for like multiple podcasts based off of this stuff, because people like storytelling. Now I'm like, let's amp it up. I want stuff for people who are more advanced, because some of my target audience are heads of SEO, heads of content. They already know about those beginner level stuff. And then this is the stuff that really starts to show me off as a thought leader. Now I'm like, again, it's still doing the same thing. It's generalizing. It's too broad. Nobody's going to engage with this stuff. I want something more personal. So that is when I start to refine the instruction. And this is what you need to be doing with ChatGPT. You need to keep refining the instruction until it gives you what you want. You cannot take the first thing that it gives you as what you're going to go with. You keep refining until you find that gold. And then once I refined my instruction, it started really giving me stuff that I could use. And it's like, oh, day one. All right, the titles are bullshit, but I can refine it. That's the thing. I can refine it and I can get something out of this. Okay, writing a title using storytelling. Okay, cool stuff. Oh, A/B testing blog titles. I never thought about this. Cool. There's also stuff on like CTAs here. All right, cool. Designing CTAs, CTA placement strategies, personalizing CTAs for different audiences. Basically, if I pick a CTA and I say, okay, I'm going to write about CTA this week, and then I write Monday to Friday on LinkedIn, repurpose that stuff on Twitter, pick one thing, the one that people engage with the most, and then I make it into something that I pitch to someone who has a really good podcast. Boom. Next week, I pick another stuff again. Let's say this time around, I'm talking about content marketing strategy. And then I just, every day, I write one thing, one thing, one thing, one thing. By the end of 5 days, people have gained something from me. Next week, I do that again. I pick another topic. I break it down into 5 days, and then I do that again. Do you understand that you have so much content that is so good that people now start looking forward to your name on their feed? And that is where you want to be. You want people to be thinking about you when they're scrolling and they're like, oh, where's this person's content? They can't find you on their feed. They're going to your profile to go and find your stuff because they don't want to miss out. Why? Your stuff is so valuable. All right. Now, that is just an idea of what you should be saying when you're creating content on ChatGPT. And I use ChatGPT a lot. Let me tell you now, the 90% of the content I created on LinkedIn last year, I made it with ChatGPT. 100% of the content I made around the FCDC, I made it with ChatGPT. This is right down to the emails I was sending potential sponsors for the initiatives that we're doing. So it works. You just need to refine your search, or rather refine your instructions until it gives you what you need. All right, next step, how are you going to reach your audience? The trick is to find out where they hang out. So for me, because I'm targeting B2B clients, most of them are on LinkedIn. And if I were to be honest, LinkedIn will be enough. But I also noticed that there are a lot of founders and maybe like decision makers that spend time on Twitter. So I want to be on those platforms. It's figuring out what stuff will be great for just LinkedIn, what stuff will be great to repurpose on both platforms, what stuff will be great for just Twitter. Okay, some of them also listen to some podcasts. Which podcasts are they listening to? I noticed that there are a lot of people who do content that listen to or that watch Clearscope webinars, and that's why you're seeing me here. So it's just basically figuring out how are you going to take your message, your content, and put it right in the face of the people you want to impress. Now, your best friend when doing all of this is repurposing. I hardly create something fresh. If I create one fresh idea, best believe it's going to serve me for a whole year. That is always my goal. One idea, figure out how to just cut it, chop it, chop it, chop it, add something else, and just use it to serve me for a whole year. And I want you to start thinking about that. How do I repurpose this thing I did 2 years ago and bring it back with a fresh perspective and then use it again? All right. Now, if you're creating blog content, I'm just going to give you like stuff you should focus on. Bottom of the funnel content, case studies. I think we're not creating enough case studies. And I say this with me personally as someone who is always too lazy to write case studies. Middle of the funnel content, research reports, original framework, personalized storytelling, detailing your learnings along the way. There is something that is synonymous with everything here, one theme. All this stuff is content that AI cannot create. Just think about it. There's no AI that's going to do a case study because it can't pull out a case study out of thin air. There's no AI that's going to write a research report because you need data, real actionable data to do that. Original framework has to come from your head. It has to come from your learnings, your experiences. Storytelling has to come again from your experiences. So as you're writing all of this stuff, always be asking yourself, what type of content can I create that AI cannot replicate? That is where you find gold. Blog posts, guest posts. I think something I always want to see personally as an editor at Moz, I want to see more case studies. I want to see more data-led case studies, like the type that Ross Simmons does at Foundation. I want to see you tell me how to apply an original framework that you came up with to solve one problem. I want to see more middle of the funnel problem-based keywords. I want to see standalone pieces from a topic cluster that you've built on a website. So let's say you already have a cluster that's performing well on your website. Pick one topic from inside there that you feel like, oh, I could cover this more comprehensively, maybe because it has zero volume keyword and you don't want to cover it on your website, put that stuff out as a blog post on somebody else's website and get the visibility that you need. Now, webinars. I know that not enough people do webinars, and I think maybe because it feels more labor intensive against a speaking engagement that is 20 minutes. A webinar is like 40 minutes, 1 hour. You have to like really dig in to present as much information as possible that is valuable to people. So if you want to do more webinars, you can just think of, okay, I've published this blog post. How can I break it down in an actionable way and show people my workflow? That is a webinar right there. Okay, I have this framework that I created. How can I apply it? Again, you see, as I keep mentioning frameworks, your process, people want to see your process. Now, how to do something practical. For me, these are like the best webinars. Show me how to do something that I don't already know. Convert your best performing core cluster into a webinar. Let's say you've published a cluster around something, and then there is one piece that is driving the most traffic in your cluster. Take that shit and turn it into a webinar presentation, because if people loved it before, they are going to love it again. Now, podcast. I feel like we are sleeping on podcasts, honestly. We are sleeping on podcasts. It is a really good source of revenue. But if you target the right podcast, you pitch something that people want to hear, something that makes them be like, oh, okay, I've not heard this before. I'm going to tune into that. And then you deliver value. That is the goal with podcasts. So, ideas. What have you learned from failing? There's too many success stories out there. Too many. We need to hear more stories about people failing and their learnings from it. Reverse engineer that. What is the best stuff that has worked for you? Why did it work for you? What was your process to make sure that you keep recreating that same results over and over again? Case studies, personal stories related to your expertise so that people can see you as human. A simple tip showing your audience how to apply your framework. You see, as I keep mentioning framework repeatedly, piggyback off a trending topic and cover it from an angle that no one else is talking about. SG is trending right now. Like what Bernard used as our icebreaker. So if you're going to pitch something around to a podcast, you could look at why is SG trending right now. What has Google done again, or what did they say that is making SG to trend? Okay, what is your take? What is an angle that nobody's looking at, and how can you cover that? Pitch that shit to a podcast. Public speaking. Now, this is the one that gives people hives, that people start sweating because they're like, oh, they staged 300 people, 400 people. Honestly, I can't really give you advice on how to do this because for me, it comes easy. I always picture everybody in the stage as ants, not just any type of ants. Oh, aliens. Yes, that is the right word. I picture everybody sitting in the audience as aliens. And then I'm just looking out to a bunch of aliens that cannot speak or see me. And that is my secret for speaking in public. But if you can nail down that fear, that initial fear of getting on stage, it's a really good way to build thought leadership. Now, some ideas for you. Practical case studies. Everybody wants a case study. I don't care where you're putting it in. Webinar, blog post, guest post. Nobody will turn down a case study. Analyze original report finding. I feel like this is a really good one. Let's say you've just done a report on this or that, and then you want to pick one angle that is hot, the one that people keep commenting on social media. Take that and then make that the title of your speaking gig. Turn the middle of the funnel topic into practical talk. Most middle of the funnel topic, they're usually educational, but also practical, like actionable. They are not just for beginners. So since you're trying to present something to a more advanced audience, this would be the right place to do that. How to do something, preferably something that nobody else is talking about, like when Lydia Infante started talking about headless SEO. And finally, again, you see me still talking about original framework because that is the stuff that makes you stand out from everybody else. It's not enough to just come on LinkedIn or social media and say, oh, these guys are their strategy is trash. Marketers are not doing a good job of this, blah, 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 blah. Okay, show us your stuff then. Yeah, Mr. Miyagi, right? Show us your stuff. All right. Now, I just want to say this. There is no thought leadership without meaningful relationships. I get a lot of people in my inbox telling me to contribute to stuff, maybe stuff that is going on SCJ, stuff that is going on this big publication. So I've reached a stage in my career now where it's easier for me to attract I want to say goodwill. But that goodwill, most of it comes from people that I have existing relationship with. Now, how do you do that? You give as much as you receive. And you do this when you join communities like Women in Tech SEO, or when you join any content community. You always try to give as much as you receive. People will start to remember your name and your face as that person who always has something thoughtful to say. One person that does this proper on Twitter is Darth Vader. I don't know if that's his name. Lyndon, I know some of you will know him on LinkedIn. Sorry, on Twitter. Lyndon really gives good advice. Comment on posts of people that you want to work with. And I'm not just saying just go and comment, oh, great stuff, oh, good shit. No, like something thoughtful, something that makes you stand out and makes them to be like, okay, who is this person? Boom, click on your profile to go and see who you are, and then start Googling you. Reference their work in your content. I try to do this a lot when I'm writing about something. I try to draw from experience of other people that have written about that topic, because I want to borrow from their thought leadership, but I also want them to see that I see them, because everybody likes appreciation. Get active in communities, network in person and online. If you live in places like London, New York, or any of all these cities, use the opportunity to network in person. If you can, go to events, even if you're not speaking at them, network in person. There is so much that can come from building these relationships. All right. And we have to address the elephant in the room, imposter syndrome. Even till today, with this job, with this bigger title that I have at Moz, I still have imposter syndrome. I still feel like, man, am I worthy? Am I actually good enough? Am I really good at my job? But I have a persona, and many of you have met my persona. I'm sure that somebody here will even probably type it in the comment section. His name is Tom Bro. Tom, Bro. That is my persona. My persona is a white guy. He's 40 years old. He's bald-headed. He has a mustache that looks like those ones they used to have in the 80s. And I carry him with me everywhere I go. So I would advise you to do something like that if it helps, so that you can get past your imposter syndrome. Because it's the one thing that I can always say that is going to pull you back from putting yourself out there. That's always the hardest thing, isn't it? Putting yourself out there, sharing your expertise with the world, sharing your experience with the world. Don't let imposter syndrome be the thing that pulls you back. All right, the rest of it, measure. If you set out a goal to do something, measure. Think of how you can use distribution to repeat and reinforce the same message without being boring. And be consistent even when it's not working. I cannot overstate this again. Repeat and reinforce. I probably have, like, I'm not even kidding, I probably made 50 posts last year around topic clusters. And this year, I probably made maybe 10 posts already around AI and thought leadership. And that's going to be my team for the year. I always have a team every year. And then I just keep hammering on that team, doing webinars, podcasts, speaking engagements on that team until people remember my name and that team in the same sentence. That is what you want to be. That is the thing that I feel makes you a thought leader. Because then when you talk about it and it shows up on search, Google has all these other signals showing that, oh, this person has that experience on that topic. And also people are going to be thinking about you when they hear that name. It just becomes synonymous. Let's get into why your AI content sucks. I think I've already talked about this, but let me just give you a list. If you want to take a screenshot here, awesome. Number one, you're relying on ChatGPT's expertise instead of your expertise. And that brings me to EAT. That is the core of it. That is why Google released that helpful content update to fight the barrage of AI content that we've been seeing. You want to make ChatGPT the expert. That is never going to happen. You are the expert. You should be the one validating. You should be the one, oh, okay, this stuff makes sense. No, this stuff doesn't make sense. Okay, this is a good jumping off point. How do I complete this with my knowledge? Which brings me to the next one. You are using AI as a standalone rather than a collaboration tool. It's a collaboration with the tools that already exist in your toolbox. It's a collaboration with you and the rest of your content team or your SEO team. It's a collaboration with you and your mind. It is not supposed to be the start and the end of your strategy or of your creation process. You haven't provided enough context or detailed information. The more information you give ChatGPT or any of these AI tools, the better the output is going to be. No training data to help ChatGPT think and write like you. This is so important. If you've done stuff, let's say I'm an editor now, and I'm trying to edit something new. I would give it some text of what it looked like before and what I edited it after so that it can use that as training data. And then the first output, okay, it still looks good. I feed it another one again. Every time it gives me an output and I refine it, I feed it that refined version. And I said, this is what I went with. What have you learned from this? And it just keeps learning until it just becomes chef kiss. No personalization. You're just doing garbage in, garbage out. You are failing to edit and refine the outputs. Limited understanding of AI capabilities. You're basically thinking that AI is the one in all and that there is nothing that it cannot do. And it has bias, it has failings, as we've seen from this presentation. You don't have a validation process. This is so dangerous because if you don't have a process of validating the information that you're getting from these AI tools, you're going to be making so many mistakes and you're going to be publishing half-truths sometimes. Validation can only come from expertise. You see, as I keep going back to that, you can only validate if you know what you are saying. So how do you validate if you're not an expert? Over-reliance on template. You want somebody to give you a text that you're going to put in ChatGPT that is going to give you the exact same result that the person got. Come on, folks. That is not going to happen. You need to keep tweaking and developing yours on the go. Like I said, treat it like an assistant. You have unrealistic expectations. Okay, I already said not enough context. Now, these are the core reasons why your AI content sucks. And if you start to reverse engineer your brain, you start to reverse engineer the way you work with AI, and you start to see it as an assistant and talk to it like a person, I promise you, you're going to see better results. Part 4. We've covered this already because I know I've showed you how I use AI to do the ideas. I still feel very, very protective of how I use AI to do the actual writing. But I can tell you what I use ChatGPT to do. I use it to flesh out ideas. This is like massive brainstorming work that I do with ChatGPT every single day. This deck you're seeing, I made it with ChatGPT. The talks I'm going to give this year, every single one of them, I'm going to make them with ChatGPT. The blog post I've been writing, literally everything I've been doing since maybe 2022, I have been using AI to do everything. So this is it. Flesh out idea, create content outline, write and edit content, write social media content, talking points for podcasts, webinars, speaking gigs, guest contributions. I use ChatGPT to do all this stuff. Now, what differs from what I do and why do I have such good output that people can't even tell that it's AI content? Is because, one, I have that custom instruction in there. That's the first one. Number two, I am using ChatGPT as a jumping off point, but I am completing with my expertise. I'm just going to stop right there on this. All right. What should you not use ChatGPT for? Number one, validate data. It cannot validate data. That is something you have to do yourself because, again, you're the human, you're the expert. You cannot trust the output that ChatGPT gives you. I want you to always be going into every conversation with ChatGPT that this stuff is giving me could be false. All of it could be complete balderdash. So you always have to be trusting your expertise, not ChatGPT's information that is regurgitated from what already exists on the internet. And finally, you absolutely cannot use ChatGPT to replace your expertise. I think there was something I wanted to share here. Okay, no. This was it. There was a thread I made. If I remember, I will make a video and send it to Bernard to add to this presentation later on. I'm pretty sure I made a thread somewhere that I was going to share for this presentation, but my ADHD brain is thinking about 10,000 things at the same time. All right, summarize. AI is not the experts. You are the experts. Stop asking ChatGPT to pretend to be the experts. You are the experts. Know your audience. Really, really know your audience and meet them where they are. Provide sufficient information so you get quality output. Personalize every single thing that you get from these AI tools. Everything, all of that text, you need to be thinking, how do I personalize this with my experience, with my learnings, with what I know about the problem? And finally, if you're going to do thought leadership at scale, there is no success without repetition, and consistency. You need to keep showing up and doing the work, even when it looks like it is not working. And I'm just going to plug one thing here. MozCon is happening June 3rd and 4th. And speaking at MozCon, Bernard, the host here, is also speaking at MozCon. So if you haven't, grab an early bird ticket. I think it's going to sell out in like 2 weeks or so. So grab an early bird ticket before then. And if you're coming to Seattle, I'll see you in MozCon. Thank you.
Chima, that was fantastic. Yes, if you haven't grabbed your tickets already from MozCon, definitely go pick those up. The roster and the topics look super good. And, I know that they're very insistent on setting a very high bar in terms of, the topics being discussed. Chima, wow, that was fantastic. I took away a lot, especially all of that, prompting that you had going on with ChatGPT. There's a lot of benefits that can come out of it, but you've got to know how to use it, and you've got to know your audience and how to, feed it the context, the narrative, so that, you can get more out of it. We had a couple questions come up during the webinar. I think when you first showed your screen, there was a Chrome extension that you were using to do something on the search results.
Okay. That is keywords
that?
everywhere. That's keywords everywhere. That's keywords everywhere.
Cool. Keywords everywhere.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we will definitely share that around. I think there was, I forget, because you did say a lot of different frameworks. Carol, if you wanted to kind of further drop an extra note, what do you mean
by framework?
Okay.
Yeah. So framework is basically what is your process for doing something.
Okay.
I feel like everybody has a different process. For example, my process for doing keyword research will probably be different from the other person's process for doing keyword research. You, Bernard, the way you write content is different from the way I write content. I've seen that because you shared it with us during your webinar presentation. So everybody has a different process. That is your framework. And it becomes your framework because you've done it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And you have made mistakes. Okay, you've made mistakes. What have you done? You've refined from those mistakes until you perfect it. That final level of perfection where it is yielding consistent results, that is what makes it a framework. And nobody else is doing the exact framework as you. Nobody, not even people who have taken the same courses as you, because you are refining your framework based on the projects that you're working on, based on the creativity, based on your expertise. With every single project, it's different. That is what makes it a framework.
Yeah, wonderfully said. I think that, whether or not we know it, we're all running some sort of a process, some sort of a system, and really, fine-tuning that and understanding. I think one of the big breakpoints for me early on in my career when I was playing a bunch of poker was recognizing that I myself am not a bad poker player. I am a poker player employing a bad framework or system or process. And I feel like what you're saying here is simply that, right? Is that, you're not a bad writer, you're not a bad SEO, you just have potentially holes or gaps within your framework that you need to improve, right?
Yes, and a great way to improve that is by seeing what others are doing. So if someone has shared their process with you, you're like, oh, okay, I can close this gap in my process based on this step that they are doing in their process. So you're just picking up from this person and this person and this person and this person, and then you're fine-tuning it with your own expertise to make like this holistic framework that is entirely yours.
Yeah, fantastic. Lena has a question. How do you give opinion for topics with limited knowledge and expertise, or similar knowledge and expertise that is available online in order to build thought leadership? ChatGPT might initially help, but how do you give it more when the topic is, rather niche or up and coming?
That's a good one, because it means that means maybe there are few people, and I think that even makes your job easier, because then you're not trying to impress so many people. There are not too many decision makers with the kind of title that you need to impress. Smaller niches are easier to break. they'll probably have like maybe one conference or like a few podcasts, you probably know the same people because it's the same people that are there. And that means that what? The people who are running this event, who are running this podcast, they're looking for new faces. So your job is easy actually. So regarding topics, the stuff that I shared still applied. You're solving problems even in those small niches. What problems are you solving? Talk about the problems that you keep coming up with. What are you seeing repeatedly? Talk about it. Are you seeing any trends? Talk about that. How are you solving problems? Talk about that. Has someone said something that resonated with you? Talk about that. All of the stuff I shared in this presentation still applies even small for like more complex, more nuanced niches. Still works for them.
Yeah, awesome. Reed asks, what is your approach or process for incorporating SEO keywords in your content?
For a corporate, okay. So basically what I do is that I do the keyword research first of all. And then once I have the keyword research, that is going to inform the title, the subheadings. Basically, it's going to inform even the way that we build backlinks, what we want to use as anchor text, and all that stuff. So how I incorporate it is first by putting it in the text itself, by using it in the title, all of that basic stuff. But I think more importantly is also using it to build internal links and external links. So it's like threefold. The keywords are going in the content. The keywords are also being used, secondary keywords are also being used to put internal links from other related contents that are already ranking for those pages. And then those same secondary keywords with the primary keywords, we're also using them to build backlinks. So that is how I use keywords in my content.
Fantastic. Jasmine asks, it's easy to say batch create more than it is to do it. How do you balance staying consistent with building an audience around your content and creating a unique point of view content?
Did you say batch creates?
It says batch create.
Yeah, I don't batch create. That's like that is way too much work. I feel like the best thought leadership content is it just hits you. Is that one that hits you when you're about to go to bed or maybe when you're working on a project or something. It just keeps coming at moments. And then the moment it just comes, you just start writing it down and then you just start fleshing out that idea. So batch creates, no, I don't batch create. But I think what helps is having like a process. So what I do is that once I have an idea in my head around the content I want to create, that idea comes from doing. 100% of the time, the ideas always come from doing, from working on something. I just grab a pen. I always have a notepad beside me. And then I just start writing the idea. And then I sit with it while I'm maybe doing laundry or doing stuff. And I just start fleshing out that idea. And then before you know it, I have like a full-fledged LinkedIn post or something that I want to cover as a blog post or something I want to cover as a podcast or like something else. But it always starts with an idea that comes from doing. Never ever batch creates. Batch creates implies that, oh, okay, I have 10 ideas and I want to write out 10 of these ideas right now. Ain't nobody got that energy.
Oh man, I hear you. I hear you. I'm usually like, just sleeping or in my shower or bath and just like there's this one idea I'm like sitting
Yes.
down, right? Um,
Yes.
but I think that's the stuff that we're talking about here, right? That narrative, that context. It's batch create is what AI does, like, and it's not, everybody wants something a little bit more polished.
Yes.
All right, Reed asks, what is the importance of assigning author profiles to blog articles
Mm,
on a company website? If we
mm.
are writing content for a design agency, should there be author profiles? Is it okay if one or two authors write the content? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, always author profiles. Because personally, I'm always very skeptical when I don't see an author on a post. Okay, who wrote this post? How do I trust that like your content is genuine, especially for like your money or your life industries? It is so important to have author bios, and it just builds trust. It just makes me less resistant to the information that you're sharing, and it makes it easier for me to trust. So I think right off the top, trust is the number one reason. Number two, the obvious one is EAT, but it's not a ranking factor. And Google have said that they don't use that to rank content. But still, if you want to talk about user experience, you want to talk about eliminating all the things that make people not to trust your information, or to even bounce when they see that there is no author information there. Immediately I jump on a page, the first thing I'm looking at, who wrote this content? So that's the first thing they're going to put there to ease my mind and then to get me to say, okay, let's read this stuff. Someone authoritative wrote this. So it doesn't matter if it's the same person that wrote 30 pieces of content or 15 pieces of content. Put their name on it.
Put your name on it. Put your name on it. So I have a question or two since we're out of audience questions. Clearly, Chima, you've worked a lot, grinded, and you yourself have become a thought leader within the SEO and content space. You described imposter syndrome, you described all of these things of the fear of putting yourself out there. And I would say in today's era, it's even more difficult to stand out. So what would you say to everybody out there who wants to put themselves out there, wants to become the next thought leader? What would be the top 3 actionable things that you think people can do tomorrow to get their names out and become thought leaders?
I'll start by saying, number one, start with your blog, because there's nobody else they're looking at. It's just you there. So I would say start there. Do keyword research to understand the problems that you want to solve, and then start creating that content. If you have blog content, then you have something that you can piggyback off and then repurpose for social media. Then give yourself a target that on social, which is more scarier than putting stuff on your blog. Say you want to put 1 post on LinkedIn a week, this week, see how it performs. Then give yourself another challenge. You want to study those who are doing well and then make notes. Why does this content perform well? Why does this content not perform well? And then it starts to give you an idea of the kind of content you want to be creating. If you're someone who has maybe under 1 year of experience, I think I'm going to share my slides so that you can just see the things that I said that you can be creating. Personal stories. Okay, you have under 1 year of experience. What have been the big things that you've learned that have helped in your career so far? You don't have to wait until you have 5 years of experience. Just take it one day at a time. Start with your blog. Start by then repurpose that content into your social media, and then push yourself to pitch for a podcast that they don't share your face or something, because that might be scary and it's just your voice out there. All right, find some Azim Digital, that platform, maybe people of color or that are very, very big on platforming minorities. Start there, start putting your stuff out there. And then when you feel confident enough with hearing the sound of your own voice on a podcast, then you can now start pitching to speak at events or doing webinars like this. But you have to start somewhere. And the best jump off point is always your blog. But don't make the mistake I made. Don't create content just off the top of your head. Please, I beg of you, do keyword research. I would always say prioritize middle and bottom, obviously, because that's the one with the higher intent. And your chances of ranking for top of the funnel is basically almost zero, especially with all the AI content out there that is unfortunately ranking. So yeah, that is my advice to you. Start with your blog and then gradually pace yourself out from there.
That's fantastic advice. We are always looking for awesome speakers at the Clearscope webinar series. So don't be afraid, don't be shy. Obviously, we have fantastic folks like Chima, but we're always up for any up and comers. So
Yes.
Send us a note and we'll definitely accept and review your pitch and go from there. One final question from the audience.
Yes.
Reed asks, other than ChatGPT and Clearscope, which we absolutely love, thank you very much, do you have any tips for helpful tools, extensions, plugins?
Honestly, I know I work at Moz, but I love Keyword Everywhere. It's $10. $10 worth of credit on Keyword Everywhere. It's let's say you're broke and you don't have money to buy a keyword tool or a content tool like Clearscope. Just start with Keyword Everywhere. $10. You get that $10, and then you can start putting oh, okay, this might be a good idea for a keyword. Put it in that Google search bar. And then what does it do? It shows you the search volume. It shows you other related keywords. And that's just a good place to jump off when you're doing keyword research and you're not sure where to start. I love Keyword Everywhere. I played around with Claude.ai, but I didn't really like the output, to be honest. I played around with Binge SEO. Sorry, with Binge AI. I didn't really like the output. I'm just going to say this. ChatGPT is still the best among all of them. when it comes to outputs, there's none of them, none of these other tools are even anywhere near the level of quality that I'm getting from ChatGPT. So I don't want to play with all these other tools just because they are there. I want to stick with the tool I know that works. So I would rather just use ChatGPT and maybe like Clearscope for like doing briefs or like any of all this other stuff. Stick with the tools that you know that work. You don't need to have like 10 or 15 tools in your toolkit. You just need to have the tools that work.
The tools that work, the narrative, the context to provide it. And I think that that's a wrap, Chima. Thank you
Awesome.
again. This was fantastic. You were awesome. Any final concluding thoughts, things that you want to share with the audience before we end?
Let me see. Do I want to plug anything? I already plugged Moscow. You can visit my website, Zenith Coffee. Bernard already shared the FCDC website, freelancecoalition.org. And you can find me on socials. Please follow me on socials. I'm Chima Mmeje on LinkedIn, Chima Mmeje on Twitter. And yeah, let's connect.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll see y'all for the next Clearscope webinar. Take care.
Bye-bye.